Okay, so now I'm going to go straight to my talk, which has two objectives. The first one is to introduce you about decentralized autonomous organization, or DAOs, which, as far as I could get the feeling, most people are not very much into those. So I'm trying to explain what they are. And then the second part, I'm going to show you some of the things that I've done to study those. And I think the first one is more important, so I'll try maybe to spend more time there, but also our work is interesting. And if you have questions on either, I'm happy to go or to take them offline. Okay. Click. All right, so let's start with the provocative trivia. So what do these people have in common besides having a compulsive hand movement? So they are all leaders of organizations that are or were highly centralized. And I put a Roman emperor that failed to keep the empire alive due to the overextension and the decentralization problems among many. Pope Francis is there not because of himself, but was the role of the Pope, right? Actually, more at the medieval times, was a highly centralized society governed by the church. And the last one, well, the last one is, there are many anecdotes, but the one I'm referring to is about how when he took over Twitter, he actually centralized all the decision-making process, and that led actually to maybe some reduction in the value of the company and a reputation loss. So what's the problem with centralization? I mean, I don't have to tell you to this audience what the problems are, but so first of all, it's inefficiency. As the organization grows, it becomes more and more difficult to aggregate information, execute decision. There's faulty decision-making, could be authoritarian, erratic, or perhaps just slow. There's a lack of transparency, can lead to corruption, censorship, and the lack of check and balances can actually lead to excessive risk-taking or even fraudulent behavior. And of course, we had the lack of innovation that is seen when happening more often when there's a lack of incentives. Okay, so what is the other way of handling organization that maybe goes into decentralized approach, not bottom-up or top-down? So this is called decentralized autonomous organization, or DAOs. These are organizations that live on the blockchain technology, of which you don't need to know anything about it, just to know there's a technology which is enabling these type of organizations. And they use, instead of relying on managers, they have smart contracts, which are self-executing code that actually triggers decision. They're done in a way which is transparent and automatic, in theory. So how a DAO usually work. A DAO is an organization that issue this kind of tokens. You can imagine as a currency of the DAO, and these are called governance tokens. So everybody who owns these tokens has a stake in the company or in the DAO, and has a right to say how to shape the future of this organization. For this, it is often said that this is fair because you know exactly who is part of the, the distribution of power within the DAO, and there is the principle of one token, one vote. One extra thing we need to keep in mind in DAOs, or is an example of how a DAO works on the main platform for DAOs, snapshot.org, which is rebranded to snapshot.box. So here's somebody who, is this also a laser pointer? Maybe? Okay, I may go sometimes. So this is some guy from the DAO called Mutant Cats. It's a very important one. I never heard of it. So this guy is a pseudonym, so yakuza.eth. And these people might be known or unknown within the ecosystem, but usually people are not identifiable. So this is just putting forward a proposal which wants to allocate some budget to hire, what is this, marketing, or I don't know. And you can see here the outcome. You see the vote, you can approve, reject, and here's the outcome. So far it's been approved because most of the people who have this token, the Mutant Cats token, have been approving this, right? Oh, this is an example, but you can vote about anything. You can vote about expensive, you can vote changing the protocol, changing the dynamics of how the organization is done. And anybody can do this, actually. So once again, you can see in a centralized example, you know who is who, you know who's the CEO, CFO, while in the case of DAOs, you just know the address of the people. So this is this kind of what you know who the members of these DAOs are most of the time. And what are the DAO promising to give us? What was the bright future they want to bring about? They want to reduce coordination cost. They want to flatten organizations. They want to have full transparency on the decision process, because as we see here, okay, no, there's no go back, or here, because all the discussion about those proposals is public. So that's also very interesting. There's very low barrier for entrance. Anybody buy one token, enter one token, and can decide. And very much the distinction between shareholders, managers, and other people which are interested in the organization are blurred. Is the DAO delivering on the promises? Let's see two examples. One, there is a quote by Katie Guo, which is an influencer about blockchain topic. It says, DAO are another tool for communities online to organize, raise funds, allocate funds, and take collective decisions. Here an example from the Constitution DAO, which allow people from all over the world together in this environment and put over 40 million US dollars to make a bid to buy a physical copy of the US Constitution exposed in the museum. So they want to realize a public good, right? Unfortunately, because everything is public, an hedge fund manager could know exactly how much they could bid, and they were outbid by the hedge fund manager, who now has the nice Constitution in his home. But there are also somebody else who thinks otherwise. So people who, this is a report from the, is a quote from the anonymous person from the DAO report 2021. This says, this organization not decentralized, not autonomous. We are building corporation on the blockchain again. It's not a democracy, and not everybody has a fair choice to cast. And this is an example. There are plenty of. Something recent happened in July 2024. There was a group of addresses of people interested in the Compound DAO, which is one of pretty large organizations on the blockchain that issue lending. So this guy managed to pass a proposal after trying a few times, where they sent 24 million to a set of wallets that were operated by themselves. And this is done by following the rules of the DAO itself. So there is a possibility of exploitation of this rule of transparency and the fact that anybody can participate. So there is research investigating DAOs that shows a number of problems. Problem number one, there is a high concentration of governance and tokens ownership. So where in principle anybody can take decision and participate, then in practice many people have a higher power than others, right? Then that also is related to the low voting turnaround. So it means that very few people vote. Even if the organization have thousands or even tens of thousands of members, then very few actually participate to voting. There are bribery and corruption, and there is voting fatigue. Like this example here, where the Golden Boy managed to pass this proposal, it was exactly the same proposal. It was tried to pass 3 times. Or in the third attempt, where it was summer day, it was very hot, and it was maybe Sunday, they managed to squeeze it in and they managed to pass it. So there is difficult to keep attention over the proposal that are set out. So this raises question: how is it possible that these DAOs, they're managing millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars? They can be vulnerable, and there's entities within in this organization which don't know exactly who they are and what are they doing with these funds. So here comes our contribution, which is done in collaboration with people from IMT Lucca and University of Mannheim and the Complexity Science Hub in Vienna. So here, what our research question is, we want to understand what is the contribution to the governance of people who belong to the DAO. So we can call it DAO insiders. And for answer this question, we collected data from the largest DAO repository, which is called snapshot.org. And we collected data from almost 1 million users. And this amounts to 35,000 proposals across almost 1,000 DAOs after cleaning for only mature DAOs. And then, well, how do we can identify contributors? So everyone everything on the blockchain is public. So we're able to identify the creator of the smart contracts that the DAO is using. We're able to identify who are the administrators of the DAOs on the Snapshot platform. And we use another service from the graph to pull out the owners of the domain names on the blockchain which are associated with the DAO itself. So we curated a set of contributors, so people who work within the DAO, and try to understand how influential are these people in shaping the governance of the DAOs. But here's the first result. So we see that for a number of DAOs, 7.5% in our data set, the contribution of contributors is higher than 50% on average. It means that these contributors, when they vote, on total, they could decide alone the outcome of the proposal. Whether they do or not is another question. We'll see in the next slide. And also this plot also highlights some of the biggest DAOs that actually are on this list. So there are also some major DAOs that are affected by this potential of insider jobs. So what happens, each DAO can decide the mechanism through which the votes take place. By far, the most common mechanism is proportional token holding. So this is, I would say, more than 80% of the DAOs use this mechanism. A few DAOs use the one token, one vote. And the dynamics are perhaps different, but this aggregates all types of voting mechanism in this plot. Thank you for the question. And see, we actually measure in how many DAOs this actually happens, that contributors at least decided one proposal by themselves. So it's 20% of the DAOs. So we also had to look at the network of co-voting. And in this case, we had, we created a network where we created a link between two voters if they co-voted in the same proposal in the same space. And we did some variation. We created a link regardless of whether they had voted for the same choice or if they voted together for the winning choice, to kind of highlight if there is an inner circle of voters. And we also weighted the links by the number of co-occurrences. We also did that for the entire number of DAOs or for the top 100 DAOs by total value locked, so the most valuable DAOs. So we have 4 networks with some that ranges from 100,000 nodes to 14,000 nodes. So what we see here, when we look at the centrality of contributors in this network, is that they tend to occupy a more central position. Although the difference is not huge, that is pretty clear. That happens on every network that we tried. And also, they also tend to be also in a higher K-core range. The second thing that we did, we ran a community detection algorithm on those co-voting networks, and we found that the contributors tend to co-vote together even across DAOs, and they tend to be in highly knitted communities, more than the non-contributors. And we computed the concentration index, the Erfindel-Hirschman index, and indeed that shows that it's significantly higher. The last things that we did to analyze the behavior of DAO contributors, we look at, this is not exactly the DAO contributors, but this hints about possible power struggles within the DAOs. So this is imagine this is a single proposal. It's an example of a proposal which users could vote for A, B, or C. Imagine C is reject, A is approve, and B is a variation of approve. And this is the share of the majority across time. So from the day of the vote, of the execution of the proposal to 100 days before. And you can see that these lines, the majorities can cross and vary. And what we look by looking at all proposals, we said that there is a trend, not a huge trend, but there is a trend for which the number of power shift, so the number of time the majority shift from one option to another, it increases the closer we get to the date of the application of the proposal. So here's the main takeaways. DAOs are a promising tool to coordinate collectives towards specific goals. And this could be public goods, or it could also be commercial good, it could be anything. So this is the good thing of DAOs, they're really general. But despite the promise of decentralization and transparencies, there are still issues. In our analysis, we checked that contributors are overrepresented in decision-making of these DAOs compared to other governance users. Moreover, this is totally untransparent. We checked that our co-voting pattern suggests the existence of inner power circle, but of course, more analysis should be done there. And majority shift also suggests the existence of power struggles. Overall, our finding challenged the idea that the DAOs are really autonomous, really decentralized, and calls for more accountability in the role of so-called vested user, people who have a higher interest in the DAOs itself. And really, finally, I want to close with another project which I'm doing, because it's the last week which we're running this. We're running a survey in which we want to analyze the behavior of people using blockchains and crypto around the world. So this is a survey that we translated in more than 30 languages that we're running for the second time. And if you're happy to take a look and participate and share it with, will be very helpful to us. Thank you so much.